population data and community values. Even in those communities that choose to cover what may be considered controversial, individual parents still have the right to determine what's best for their own children and may continue to opt out their child without academic penalty as provided to them by law. We want every parent to have a say in their child's education. Thank you for the opportunity.
If the department's goal is clarity and parents' rights, you talked, I think, 3 different times about our current state sex education law, where you could have the local school board in combination with local sex ed boards as kind of the arbitrators and the decision makers of what sex education should be in that school. And you, like I said, you went over, I think, 3 times. If the idea is to have clarity and, clear purpose, why mix the two? I know you said they overlap, and I agree with you somewhat, but it seems like it's making it more unclear the way you're going.
We are, based on the comments that we are reviewing, and we're still in the process of looking at it, we may look at how to present it differently.
I think I might disagree with you there somewhat, but I guess in the proposed health new standards, and I understand your version 2 you're coming out with, but we're missing, vision, narcotics, accident prevention, tobacco. I guess I would suggest if we're wanting to protect children's health, those things would be in the new proposed standards. And I'm not sure why they got left out.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Merriman. I think Representative Merriman was being kind when he said suggest, as the statute requires those things to be taught in your health classes. It's not a suggestion. And there virtually is nothing in your standards about that, but there's a litany of information in your standards. You mentioned reproductive health 7 times. You mentioned sexual orientation twice. You mentioned gender 4 times. And you mentioned advocacy 8 times, as well as sexual health 21 times. What's the fixation on the sexual activity that is so predominant coming at us on this? Because, we have a individual who made a statement. And there were comments made earlier, but let me just read this statement to you really quick. Politicians, media, and advocacy groups have spread falsehoods to scare parents into thinking that schools would teach sex education to their children without giving parents a chance to opt out for the instruction. Nothing could be further from the truth. But you also said that this is a public comment period, right, where people have that opportunity to come forward and talk through what these things say. I find it disturbing that the president and now candidate for state senate would make that statement, the president of the school board, because this is actually what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to have those conversations. We're supposed to talk about what this says, and we're supposed to debate what role you have in educating our children. And the reality is that there's lots of things in this proposed guidelines that do not line up with the beliefs of parents. And they do not believe it is the role of the government, which, by the way, you are, to dictate these kinds of things. Things like you said, the science of gender. How many genders are there? How many genders are there?
Different people have different beliefs on that.
Well, you can believe all you want, but science says there's 2. So why is it that we believe we have to put this indoctrination into our you can believe whatever you want, and that's perfectly okay. And any parent can believe whatever they want, and that's perfectly okay. And any politician can believe whatever they want, and that's perfectly okay. But why are we putting it in the curriculum to educate our children about that? What's the reason behind that?
The reason behind it is that we find that children who are gender diverse are being harassed, bullied in school. We can't make education gains if students feel unsafe.
Wouldn't disagree with you on that. Completely agree that we have to keep our children safe. But are you saying that by you providing this education on gender fluidity or multiple gender theory, are you saying that what that will do is it will stop those kinds of behaviors in school?
The standards point to understanding tolerance, inclusivity, and based on what we know from Massachusetts, it has made a difference. I do want to go back to the point where you made about dictate. We are not dictating these standards. They're a guideline. And when you talk about the fixation on what I presented, it is based on the comments that I received. So other people are pointing to this being an issue. This is why I addressed it with the committee.
Can I just ask you really quick, how's Michigan doing in math and reading?
We are not at the top of what Massachusetts is providing. We need to work on our reading and math, but we know that students in classrooms need to feel safe in order to excel.
Safe from what again?
Bullying, harassment.
What other issues that they get bullied on are you addressing in this health guideline?
I'm not sure I understand that question.
Okay. When's the last time we updated the curriculum for reading and math and science in the state of Michigan?
I think it's been within the last 5 years. I've been with the department 5.5 years. It hasn't, I think it was recently updated when I first started.
And the results of that again are what? That we're 47th in the nation in education?
Well, no, on that piece, I want to talk about that through this legislature, we've just got new laws into place that help with the science of reading so that we can make a difference in our reading achievement. Those laws just started. We've just started with the implementation of high quality instructional material in reading so that schools can use those high quality instructional materials based on the science of reading. It takes a little time to get there. So we're just beginning our reading efforts.
Last point I'll make and we'll move on. There's lots of people who want to ask questions. At least in 4 locations in your guidance, it talks about these provisions not just applying in health. It applies across the curriculum in every class, that these standards that you're offering, suggesting in your words, can be shared in any other class that may feel the need to share them. So when that happens, how is it that parents have the option to opt out?
Because as I mentioned, anything related to sex education standards, parents have the right to opt out. It is not unusual for content to be taught through different curriculums or curricula areas. Some students may learn math in an ELA class. Some students may learn social studies in an ELA class or vice versa. But anything related to sex education, a parent has the right to opt out, be notified and opt out.
Why is it, do you believe, that the legislature enacted a law, passed a law that separated sex education from all of the other education standards?
I would have to ask the legislature.
I believe that they did that because I think it's our job as the experts to understand that, at least have an opinion. I believe they did that because that is a very personal, cultural, family, religious belief, varying things like that issue, very different than the science of mathematics. That is the reason that they separated it out. And when we start to commingle it, and when we start to put information in the health education that is highly debatable for multiple reasons, but we act as if it is an affirmed, proven thing, there is where parents start to become concerned. And when the sitting superintendent claims that that's baloney and that it's not accurate and it's fear mongering, you couldn't be more disrespectful to make a statement like that. So
I did make that statement.
I'm sorry. I said superintendent. I do apologize. The school board president.
So I just want to go back a little bit to our standards that we currently have in 2007, the current ones. They embedded sex ed as well.
And here we are. So we're going to move on. Representative Jamie Green.
And I'm going to add an extra layer. Thank you, Dr. Carnell, who is the acting superintendent in the hot seat right now. We've done some great work on that literacy program, and so I appreciate your knowledge in that. And the biggest thing, just for clarity for people watching at home, I know my mom watches this. This document is a draft of the Health Education Standards Framework. So the biggest concern is that it invites sensitive social and sexual content into every subject, not just health. And that's what we're concerned about is because, yes, you are correct. You're absolutely following the law when it comes to sex ed. And we would love to update that because like Representative Meerman said, there's a lot of things that need to go in there that's not in there and that we need to. But what is the red flags? Like on page 7 of this document, it says a clear articulation of social emotional competencies integrated into all areas of content. On page 8, the whole school, whole community, whole child approach across all disciplines. Page 9, it urges curriculum designers. So I know we're talking about standards. There's a difference between standards and curriculum, but it encourages curriculum designers for the transferability of the practice of those sex ed topics, skills across all topics and all disciplines. And then of course on page 13 and 14, it allows educators, not necessarily that trained person, to mix and match the practices, concepts, and performance expectations as needed for their context. So that's why this document is bringing because in plain terms, this proposal makes it possible to embed sexual health and identity material, sexual like identity, which we already have a disagreement on this of how many genders there are right here at this table. So that it integrates it throughout all the curriculums without any boundaries or parental notification. So that's the big crux of this. And so I guess I have 2 questions. And you may have kind of answered this with earlier, but so what guardrails do you plan on putting in, since this is a draft, to prevent sexual health or gender identity material from being inserted into non-health classes such as English, social studies, and science? So that's something we're asking, and you don't necessarily have to answer that because I know you're taking feedback. So if you want to answer it, because I have another question as well.
We believe that the Sex Ed Advisory Board, which is at the local level, would be the best place to monitor that.